Greetings, our viewers. My name is Bertha Nherera, and I'm working with Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, Pelham, Zimbabwe. With Pelham, Zimbabwe, we are working on a campaign, My Food is African, and in this episode, we are going to talk about policies and standards. My Food is African is a continental campaign that is being implemented in 13 African countries, including Zimbabwe. And Pelham Zimbabwe is the one that is coordinating with a core group of organizations the campaign. It's being implemented under the auspices of Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, AFSA. And the main objective of this campaign is really to increase the awareness on consumption of our traditional foods. And we really want the awareness to translate into real concrete practice, that when someone is aware of this food, they also consume the food, so that it's not just remaining at the level of awareness. So today I'm joined by Mr. Jerry Kudakwashe. May you please introduce yourself?
Greetings, viewers. My name is Jerry Kudakwashe. I'm with Farms and Permaculture Center, which is also part of Pelham Zimbabwe Network. Farms and Permaculture's work is basically around permaculture or agroecology education and skills capacitation, focusing on both formal and informal education. I thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Kudakwashe, which policies have been put in place as far as protecting Zimbabwe's food systems?
Yes, okay, thank you. In Zimbabwe, there's quite a lot of policies, plans, and strategies that have been put in place around issues of food systems as well as agriculture. But I will just try to focus mainly on those that have something to do in protecting and uplifting the local food systems. I think on top of everything, we have what we call the National Food Security and Nutrition Policy, which was enacted in 2013, which basically draw much of its objective and specific objective from the continental agriculture and food policies framework. So on this, I think the most important thing to get on this is that one of the key objectives of the National Food Security and Nutrition Policy is around improving productivity, access, consumption of nutritious and culturally appropriate food. I think that's where the key element is there is culturally appropriate food. So that has been one of the key guiding policy framework around food. But I think of late there's been a lot of work around trying to promote what we call agroecology, which then try to improve and diversify our production of the local foods, so that we have not just we don't just encourage consumption, but we also encourage production of diversified foods, which then leads to consumption of diversified foods. Then we also have been talking around the government taking a proactive stance around promotion of traditional grains, where I think for the previous decades there have been challenges around people or the small grain, the traditional grains producers accessing markets. So they've been being opened for the traditional grains being sold to parastatals like GMB, as well as basically promoting the consumption of these through various initiatives.
Okay, thank you very much. Just when you're talking about traditional foods, I know that some of our viewers might not know about the traditional grains. So the traditional grains that we are talking about in Zimbabwe is we have got finger millet, which is here. We have this one, which is a close relative of finger millet, it's shoboda. We also have got pearl millet, which is here. And then we have our sorghum. It can be white and it can also be red, just that our viewers are aware of the traditional grains. And it's interesting that our government is actually leading and having a policy around our traditional grains. So when we are looking at policies, how do they strengthen the sovereignty of food in Africa?
All right, thank you for that. I think that's quite an interesting and very good question. Our policies have got, I think, an impact on how we promote the production of food as well as how we promote the consumption of food. And I think we've been doing quite well in trying to really protect, because there's quite a lot of elements and edges that comes with multinational companies which are trying to destroy. And I think in Zimbabwe, as of yet, we've tried, I think, as well to repel the production of genetically engineered crops. We've tried to promote the production as well as consumption of traditional grains. We've also tried, I think, as much through our policies to increase the diversification of production as well as consumption. So to me, I think basically this is one way we can actually kind of protect, or how we can strengthen our food systems. But I think taking it from the community going up is that we need to have our consumers as well as our producers having an understanding of the whole process of the food value chain from the fields to the fork, and how we can have equitable fair prices both to the producers as well as to the consumers, so that we improve or we increase on consumption, as well as we give the farmers the fair price that they can go back to the field on an annual basis so that they can produce for us. Then on a national level, I think for us to continuously, we need to have policies as well as legislation then that promotes the consumption of our food, as well as limits the cheap imports from coming in into our countries. Then at continental level, I think we need to create solidarity and cooperation as nations, so that we can stand with one voice to multinational companies that wants to push their agenda in terms of genetically engineered seed, genetically engineered food, in terms of seed and breeding policies and acts. So we really need to have a very strong cooperation and solidarity, so that we can stand with one voice and have and repel some of these things that are not protecting the smallholder farmers. So basically, the government is supposed to really protect much the smallholder farmers, who are the main source of our food in Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I think from what you are saying, what is key is that there is control of cheap food imports. Would you like to give an example of this kind of cheap food imports that we are having on our shelves?
Yeah, thank you. I think we got a lot of pastas that is coming from, I think, abroad. And that is, I think, because of current policies that we have are now relatively way cheaper than maybe some of our local foods. And because of probably economic hardship and because of how the media has pushed this, there's an increase in consumption of this. And it's not by default it's not by coincidence that we're also finding the increase in communicable diseases like diabetes, blood pressure, and other diseases that are also coming up with the increase in consumption of these foods as well.
Thank you. I think issue of food sovereignty is something that we really have to look at. And what you have raised, that the smallholder farmers, they are the ones that are producing our food. So we need to ensure that we have got the policies that are protecting our smallholder farmers. So this issue of having cheap food imports coming on our shelves, I think it's something that we also need to deal with, because a community eats food that is around it. If it's children in the home, they also eat food that is around them. Thank you, our viewers. We come to the end of our first segment, where we were looking at the issues of policy and issues of standards. And you can see it's the policies and the standards that really also affect how we consume our foods. Thank you very much. Welcome back to our second segment, our viewers, where we are discussing about policy and standards as they relate or as they support My Food is African campaign. Here with us, Mr. Kudakwashe. How are organizations working in agroecology coming together with the government to promote food security, sovereignty in Zimbabwe through promotion of traditional diets?
Oh, thank you. I think there's been quite a lot that has been happening in the previous, say, 5, 10 years up until now. I think one of the key things that the government is also kind of buy into the idea that I think we need to move our idea of agriculture from being heavily relying on synthetic as well as external inputs to being much more sustainable. And I think one of the key elements that we've been working with, which is inclusive for government, is that Farmers and I has been leading a process of developing an agroecology policy, and we've been working in collaboration with the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture and Fisheries, where we've been collaborating, doing consultation, doing validations, doing all the processes with the government, and they're also very keen to take into action or taking into consideration the agroecology policy so that it will be a broad part of their agricultural policy. And I think the other one is our effort as organizations that are into agroecology, where the government invited us to being part of the National Agricultural Policy Framework, where we are working muchly under Pillar 8, which is focused on sustainable agriculture and resilience. So our input has been very much fundamental to the government, to how they plan around issues of sustainable agriculture as well as resilience. And I think loosely we've also been doing food festivals, where we have been working loosely, I think, with various ministries, from the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Trade, as well as government departments, DR and SS, the Gene Bank, where they've been collaborating and working with us in trying to showcase, appreciate, and celebrate our own food and said that's, I think, one of the major things that have been happening. And I think also one of the major achievement or impact that has been happening, I've alluded to it earlier about the traditional grains being a centerpiece of the agriculture intervention as well as the food system in Zimbabwe, which the government have really taken it upon themselves to promote in terms of consumption as well as production. So in summary, I think we have been really working and collaborating with government in trying to push the agenda towards sustainable agriculture, towards development of local food systems.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And the Fambizanai Permaculture Center is a member of Pelham Zimbabwe, and Pelham Zimbabwe is a network of organizations around the country. We have about 28 organizations that are also working on agroecology. Would you want to just explain a bit more about what exactly do we mean by agroecology, so that some people out there who may not understand what it means, just explain and give some examples of what is agroecology, how different is it from industrial agriculture?
All right, thank you. So agroecology in layman's language is basically a production which basically relies on nature for the production systems, where we basically try to reduce or to eliminate the use of external inputs. We are talking of your chemical fertilizers, or we're talking of your pesticides, we're talking of your herbicides. We're also talking of even the agriculture system that empowers the household, that empowers the communities, that increase cohesion and solidarity within the communities. So basically, it's an agriculture system that mimics or that tries to learn from nature. Why it's different from the industrial, from the conventional farming, in such a way that the agroecology basically increases biodiversity, increases production of various aspects of crops, while its conventional is kind of trying to minimize the number of crops that are being grown. And I think globally on most commercial farms, the production is around probably 12 crops, while we have almost more than 3,000 cultivated varieties of crops that are there. And agroecology is trying to run away from trying to go from monoculture and trying to increase the biodiversity and in terms of production as well as consumption. So that would be, in layman's language, the simple difference and definition of agroecology.
Thank you very much for that. And it's amazing that we are saying we are focusing on just 12 crops, yet we have about 3,000 crops. And I know in Zimbabwe we have this diversity, and that's why this campaign, we want our young people to know that when we are talking of vegetables, we have a variety of vegetables Some just think that it's cabbage, carrots, beans, but we have a variety. You can have a list, and some of them, they are found in specific regions. And when it comes to fruits also, we have a variety of fruits. Some of our children, they just think that it's an orange, it's a banana, mostly the exotic crops.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is also to do with our education system, which is a colonial, and a lot of our food has got that British background. So yeah, that's very interesting. The agroecology that is being promoted by PELAM and its members. Any lasting words that you would want to share with our viewers?
Thank you. I think that I think the time is right now. I mean, is for us to really kind of embrace ourselves as well as our culture and our food. I think COVID has just recently showed us how much is it important for us to really have a very strong immune system. And for us to have a strong immune system, we also need to have diverse consumption. For us to have diverse consumption, we need to have diverse production. That means we need to take care of our land so that the land can take care of us. Those are my parting words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our viewers. We come to the end of our segment where we have been discussing about the issues of policy and standards. And like what Mr. Kudakwashe said, is Zimbabwe, we are also leading in terms that we have got policies that are supporting this work that we are doing on My Food is African, but there are some certain areas where there is need to enhance the policies so that we can have increased consumption. Thank you very much.